I grew up in silence. My mother left when I was very young, so young that I could not even remember the shape of her face or the sound of her voice. Sometimes I tried to imagine her, but every time my mind was blank. My father never spoke about her. Whenever I asked, his answer was short and sharp. She is gone, that is all. After a while, I stopped asking. We lived in a small house near the river. The house was old, but it stood firm, like my father. The days were quiet. We did not have visitors, and even if someone came, they did not stay long. My father worked hard. He repaired cars in a small shop not far from the house. His hands were always covered with grease, and his clothes smelled of oil and metal. He came home late every evening, ate in silence, and went to bed early. His eyes were heavy, his body tired. We never spoke much. Sometimes I wished for more words, but I accepted the silence as part of life. Most of my time was spent alone. I read books that I borrowed from the small library in town, or I walked by the river. The river was my companion. Its water was slow, calm, and endless. I liked watching it, listening to its quiet sound, feeling as if it carried away the things I could not say. I found peace in the silence of the water. I did not need noise. I did not need people. At school, I was different. The other boys laughed together, played games, shared their little secrets. I sat alone at the corner of the classroom, always quiet. When the bell rang, I left quickly, as if the school walls were closing in on me. Sometimes some boys tried to talk to me, to invite me to play, but I pushed them away. I didn't believe in friendship. My father's words were sharp in my memory. People leave. Do not expect them to stay. I believed him. He had lived it. I had lived it too, in my own way. Girls were no different in my eyes. Some smiled at me, some asked me questions, but I never answered more than a few words. I saw how they changed friends so easily, how their laughter switched from one boy to another. To me, it looked fake, as if their words had no weight, no meaning. I did not trust them. I did not trust anyone. I thought I was strong because I did not need anyone. I thought I was free because I was alone. Years passed like that. I finished school, but nothing really changed. I started helping my father in the shop. The smell of engines, the sound of hammers, the constant turning of screws. This became my life. Every day looked the same. I woke up early, went to the shop, worked with my father, came home, ate dinner, and went to bed. It was a cycle without color, without excitement. But I did not complain. I thought this was what life was meant to be. Simple, quiet, without surprises. I did not feel sadness, but I did not feel joy either. I lived somewhere in between, in a safe emptiness. But one morning, everything began to change. It was an ordinary day. The sun was still climbing. The air smelled of oil. My father was already bent over an engine. Then she walked in. A girl. She looked around the shop before stepping closer. Her car had a problem, and she wanted it fixed. I wiped my hands on a rag, asked her what was wrong, and listened, half-heartedly as she explained. I did not look at her face for long. She was just another customer. I wanted to fix the car quickly and return to my world of tools and engines. When I handed her the keys, she thanked me. I gave no reply. I thought she would leave, but she lingered for a moment, her eyes moving around the small shop. Then she asked a simple question. Do you like working here? I stayed silent. I never liked small talk. She smiled anyway, as if my silence was not heavy but light. Then she said, You're very quiet. She gave a soft laugh, not loud like others, not sharp or mocking. It was gentle. For some reason, it did not bother me. She left, and I told myself that was the end. But the next day, she returned. This time, her car was fine. She just stood at the door looking inside. I ignored her, hoping she would go away. But she didn't. She walked closer and said, Can I watch? I frowned. Watch what? You work, she replied simply. I shook my head. I did not understand her. People did not come here to watch. But she did not leave. Instead, she smiled again and said, Okay, I'll wait outside. I thought it was strange. I told myself she was wasting her time. But the next day, she came again. And the day after that. Sometimes she asked me questions. Sometimes she sat outside quietly. My father noticed her. One evening he said, She is different. I did not reply. I didn't want to talk about her. I didn't even want to think about her. But I did. One evening I saw her by the river. She was sitting on a rock, watching the water, just like I used to do when I wanted silence. I walked past her, but she turned, smiled, and asked, Do you like the river? Her question stopped me. Nobody had ever asked me that before. I gave a slow nod. She didn't speak more. She just sat there watching the water. I told myself she would leave soon, like everyone else. But she didn't. She kept coming. Day after day, morning after morning, she was there in the shop or near the river. She wasn't loud. She wasn't demanding. She wasn't like the others. She didn't ask me questions I didn't want to answer. She just stayed. And that made me afraid because I didn't know why. One afternoon, she brought a cup of coffee. She placed it on the table near me and said, For you. I don't drink coffee, I said flatly. She smiled and replied, Then I'll bring tea next time. I frowned, confused. Why? She shrugged lightly. Because you work hard. I did not answer. I turned back to my tools. But I saw my father take the coffee, smile at her, and sip it slowly. He liked her. I didn't know why. One afternoon, she brought a cup of coffee. She placed it on the table near me and said, For you. I don't drink coffee, I said flatly. She smiled and replied, Then I'll bring tea next time. I frowned, confused. Why? She shrugged lightly. Because you work hard. I did not answer. I turned back to my tools. But I saw my father take the coffee, smile at her, and sip it slowly. He liked her. I didn't know why. Soon she started coming in the evenings too. Sometimes she sat by the river, sometimes outside the shop. She didn't ask me for anything. She didn't push me. She was just there, like a constant shadow. I told myself she would get bored, that one day she would stop coming. But she never did. One evening, I found her sitting on an old bench by the river. The sun was setting, painting the water gold. I walked toward her and asked, Why do you come here every day? She looked at me calmly, her smile soft. Because I want to. Her answer made no sense to me. You don't even know me, I said. She tilted her head slightly. Maybe I do. I shook my head. No, you don't. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Maybe you think people always leave, but I am still here. her words pressed against my chest like a weight. I didn't know how to answer, so I said nothing. I sat next to her, and for the first time, silence did not feel empty. It felt full. The next day, she brought tea instead of coffee. She placed it on the table near me, like before. I looked at it for a long time. Then finally, for the first time, I picked it up. It was warm in my hands. I took a small sip. She smiled, but she didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Something was changing. I didn't know what it was, but for the first time, I didn't feel completely alone. She became a part of my days. I noticed when she wasn't there. I waited for her without admitting it to myself. She never demanded my attention, but she had it anyway. She was like the river, quiet, steady, always there. One evening, she placed a small box on the table. "For you," she said. I frowned. "Why?" She smiled. "Open it later." That night, I sat on my bed and looked at the box for a long time before opening it. Inside was a simple keychain, a small silver key on a black string. It was nothing fancy, but it felt meaningful in a way I could not explain. I held it for a long time before slipping it into my pocket. The next day, when she came, I wanted to ask her why she had given it to me, but I didn't. Instead, I worked, and she watched, like always. Something was different now. I could feel it, even if I didn't have the words. Weeks passed. She kept coming, and something inside me kept shifting. I began to listen when she spoke. I drank the tea she brought. I sat by the river with her. Slowly, without knowing when it began, I stopped pushing her away. Then one rainy day, when the shop was quiet and no customers came, she arrived soaked from the storm. I frowned, telling her she was wet. She laughed softly, saying she already knew. I brought her a towel, and she sat near me, listening to the rain. Then she asked, "Do you ever feel lonely?" Her question caught me off guard. I wanted to say no. I wanted to believe I did not need anyone. But she looked at me gently and said, "But you let me stay." And in that moment, I knew she was right. The rain fell harder that evening, drumming on the roof of the shop. The air smelled of wet earth and oil, and the world outside looked gray. She sat across from me, her clothes damp, her hair falling loose against her face. But her smile was still there, soft and unshaken. I watched her quietly, wondering why she would walk in the rain just to sit in a workshop where she had nothing to do. "You should have stayed home," I said finally. She shook her head. "I wanted to come." Her answer was simple, yet it struck something inside me. I didn't reply. I bent over the car engine again, but my hands didn't move with the same focus. My thoughts were tangled. For so many years, I had believed in silence, in distance, in closing my heart to everyone. And yet, she had walked through the walls I built without even trying. She stayed until the rain softened, then stood and thanked me for the towel. Before leaving, she turned and said, "I like being here. Even if you don't talk, I like it." Her words stayed with me long after she left. That night, lying in bed, I thought about her laughter, her tea, the way she always chose the same spot by the river. I told myself not to think too much, but I couldn't stop. The days passed, and she remained part of my life. I started noticing little things about her, things I never noticed about anyone before. I noticed the way her hands moved when she spoke, gentle and slow. I noticed the way her eyes softened when she looked at the river, as if she saw more than just water. I noticed how she never rushed, how her presence was always calm, steady like the river itself. One evening, she was quieter than usual. She sat by the river, her eyes fixed on the water, her hands clasped together. Something about her silence felt heavy. I walked to her and asked, "What's wrong?" She sighed softly. "Nothing. Just thinking." I waited, but she didn't explain. We sat together in silence, the air cool, the wind brushing against us. Then suddenly she turned to me and asked, "If I leave one day, will you miss me?" I read it again and again, unable to breathe. She was gone, and she was right. I did miss her. I missed her voice, her quiet presence, her small smile that had become part of my days. I missed the tea she brought, the way she always sat in the same place by the river. I missed her without even knowing when I had started to need her. That night, I sat on my bed holding the keychain she had given me. It felt heavier than before, as if it carried all the words I had never spoken. For years I had lived with a closed heart, believing I needed no one. But now I knew the truth. My heart had opened without me realizing it, and now I could not close it again. Days turned into weeks, and still she did not return. Every morning, I looked at the door of the shop, hoping to see her walk in. Every evening, I went to the river, staring at her empty bench. The silence I once loved became unbearable. My father said nothing, but I knew he saw the change in me. He saw the emptiness that grew with every day she was gone. One evening, as the sun set and the river glowed gold, I sat on the bench alone. I held the keychain tightly, wishing I could go back to the days when she was here. I wished I had spoken, wished I had told her what I felt but was too afraid to admit. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to lose something you never knew you needed until it was gone. Weeks later, when I had almost lost hope, she returned. I saw her standing at the door of the shop one morning, her eyes searching, her smile small but real. My heart jumped in my chest. I froze, not knowing what to do. She stepped inside quietly, as if she had never left. My father looked up, surprised, then smiled. I stayed still, afraid this was a dream, but when her eyes met mine, I knew it was real. "Hello," she said softly. I wanted to say 1,000 things. I wanted to ask why she left, where she had gone, why she had come back. But all I managed was a single word: "Hello." Her smile grew, and in that moment, the silence between us felt full again. From that day on, something was different. I no longer pretended not to care. I listened when she spoke. I shared small things, pieces of myself I had kept hidden. It was not easy. The walls I had built around my heart were still there, but with her, they began to crumble slowly. She never pushed me, never demanded more than I could give. She just stayed, and that was enough. I realized then that love does not always arrive with noise or sudden fire. Sometimes it arrives quietly, patiently, like a river flowing steady and endless. It waits, it stays. And when you finally notice it, you realize it has been there all along. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Emma English Practice.